Hello, and welcome to Fridays at 4 on twitch.tv/GDO stream. I'm your community manager, Cordovan, and we've got with us a special guest today. I want to say hello to our executive producer, Severlin. How you doing, Sev?
How are you?
Good, good. Thanks for joining me here today. We're just going to do some general Q&A from the Twitch chat, talk a little bit about whatever we feel like talking about, and just kind of hang out here on a very cold and dreary, in Massachusetts at least, Friday afternoon. I don't know what it's like up in your neck of the woods, but around here it is rainy and cold and windy and kind of a rough day out there.
It's definitely dreary here.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. But we are getting ready to release Update 62. We'll have more information about its release date very soon, but we are targeting next week for the release of Update 62. We'll have release notes and a lot more. That is going to debut Night Revels as well. We've got some new rewards for Night Revels. We don't have any screenshots to show you today, but we will for next week. And a whole lot more happening as well. Maybe we're going to pry some of that out of Sev here today.
Yeah, I'm psyched. We'll have some new rewards for Night Revels and some cool stuff coming up as well for the sort of end of year. What do you think of the PAX dungeon so far? The streams, how's the Art of Deving streams been going?
They've been
They
going
look
good.
cool.
Yeah, they've been fun. I mean, it's a deep dive into game development a little bit. So if you really want to know, hey, how do they make a DDO dungeon? This shows you
Yeah,
in a real way how these things get done. And we've got episode 3 set for next Thursday at 5 p.m. Eastern, and that'll be right here on twitch.tv/DDO stream. So that should be fun. Where the first one was really NPCs and kind of scene setting. Second one got to go into the dungeon and do some of the dungeon building itself, and so we're getting there. But we're going to be releasing that. The plan is to try to release it around the end of the year. So
yeah, that'll be cool. So that'll
yep.
be interesting. The dungeon, I think, will be fun for the end. We
Mm-hmm.
have some surprises coming up in the fall, winter as well. I'm sort of excited about I'm kind of excited about this. We're kind of doing a new kind of update. And I don't think that we've talked about it at
We have
all.
not. We have not really said much at all about what Update 63
But should
will
I
be
not say
here.
anything?
So, well, no, I mean it's up to you. Whatever you feel we should talk about. I mean, on the
Yeah,
producer's letter way back in the day, it was listed as new quest pack, and it's not exactly that, but it's kind of like that. So,
it'd be cool.
yeah.
Well, so looking at the stream, revamp chronoscope is still on our radar. So long as we don't run into anything hairy in the chronoscope code, I'd like to get that out relatively soon. I think there's some cool stuff there. And then we have this. Um, so one of the things we're doing for the next our kind of winter pack is it will be something you'll have to find a whole bunch of clues and unlock these 4 challenge dungeons. And so they're going to be extreme challenge because right now what we do is we tend to make dungeons that are all the same difficulty and then rely on, of course, Reaper mode and Elite mode to make it difficult. So in this, you're going to have to hunt down clues to unlock these dungeons. And the 4 dungeons you unlock will be end game extreme challenge. We haven't done a lot of exclusively end game stuff.
Yeah.
And I think I'm kind of interested because the content people haven't really got a chance to really work on difficulty outside of raids. And so having dungeons to be extreme challenge for your end game builds will be something new that they're doing.
Hmm.
And I think that would be interesting, and all of the things they have to do to unlock that will be kind of cool. I think the community will be looking to figure out how to unlock those dungeons as soon as possible.
I would say that you have confirmed the raid here, by the way. I let it slip by accident. And yes, it was caught in a slip for the first time in a long time. Saying the name of the raid that we were going to be given the revamp to, and you've just confirmed it now. We are looking at Chronoscope, so.
you
Yep.
spoiled that a
I
long
know I
time
did.
ago.
Well, it's my fault. Like I said, I don't do it often, but that one was. Sorry. So,
So that will be
yeah.
kind of cool. And then the Night Revels next week will be fun. Um,
Oh no.
that will be cool.
Uh, hang on. Let me disconnect. Okay. We're back.
Apparently, I said too much and I just got booted out.
No, someone accidentally joined the video chat from the team here, and it screwed up your video briefly. I had to accidentally kick them. So, all right. Well, you're right though. We do have some questions that we can get to in chat here as well. We did talk a little bit about Night Revels and Update 63 and how that's going to go, and now we did say Chronoscope and all that. So apparently you had done a poll. I think either on social media or I'm not quite sure what poll listens chart is asking about. Do you know what this person might be talking about?
Our
Did you do a
content
poll on your
poll
Did you do a poll on your X feed or something like that recently?
for me? No. Are
Yeah.
you talking about the content poll
Oh, maybe
what
is that what it is?
about what content people would
Okay.
like to see?
Okay. Yeah, that's probably the one that's being asked about then. Sure.
Yeah. Well, what is the question?
Basically, anything we want to say about the results. I know we don't want to get into detail about what the results are. They were an internal poll, but I think we could talk about it a little bit in general terms.
The ones that did very well were Planescape, Myth Draenor, Ravenloft are the ones that we're kind of looking at.
Yep. Yep.
The other ones did all. It was actually pretty good because almost all of them did fairly well.
Yeah.
So it wasn't like any one stood out, which was kind of nice because we could kind of do well, every single one had its proponents, and so
Yeah.
that was good.
Yeah. But either way, it was interesting to hear from the community about what do you think about these ideas, and I know that we'll be doing more of that kind of thing in the future too. We've got plans for other polls that we can put out here as we're planning things into 2024 and beyond. So
Yeah, I think that I don't think we could do Dragonlance because I think that there are other things about that, and the problem with Dragonlance is it's such a closed world that it's hard to dip into. Like you couldn't just have a couple of Lance dungeons as part of DDO. It would just be too. It would have too many restrictions.
yeah. So this is an earlier question from Lotil. We are on the course for a second raid this year. That's the Chronoscope that was referenced earlier, which was not answered at the time that question was asked. What about a universal tree? Can anything be said about the thematics of a future universal tree?
Right now, so I think that we want to get through the archetypes for various classes first. That's one of the things that we're kind of looking at. So right now we're focusing on what the next archetype is. And then we'll start hitting universal trees again at some point, maybe next year. Probably not this year though. No, I think we're going to go barbarian next.
Oh,
Some
yeah.
people have some good archetype barbarian ideas that I think sounded really cool, and that's kind of what we're looking at.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. But that's not for probably this year. This would be a 2024 thing, perhaps. Or am I mistaken on that?
Yeah, I don't have any. There's no news about the date
Okay. Okay.
before people get too excited.
Glass Jaws wants to know what's new in Night Revels. We could. I mean, Night Revels is arriving next week, and I do have a list of new rewards. We could talk about some of that if we want
Sure.
to.
Why don't you do it? I mean, if you have the list, then I don't have to do it.
So we have
a
a new mount coming, Reaper's Steed. It's the red version of the Reaper's Steed line of mounts. We have a Spectral Pseudo Dragon pet certificate, a cosmetic armor and cloak and hat And we're bringing back the candies with new effects. So the almond coated Shadow Apple, Dark Swirl Caramel, Sweet Cinnamon, and Almond Shadow Spice candy are getting new versions of them that we're bringing back to the game here for Night Revels. So that's what we've got. And we had talked a little bit about plans for a new Night Revels dungeon, which didn't make it this year, but is something that is basically still being worked on here, probably for next year, presumably.
I kind of want that pseudo dragon to also appear as my my companion from my tree, but we'll see. I think it's just the non-combat.
Yeah, yeah. So there we go. Have we considered revamping the Crystal Cove outdoor area?
Yeah, like we want to do a Crystal Cove revamp at some point, and we have talked about that. One of the problems with Crystal Cove revamp is that when you're looking at like what we need for the year, that it's a very easy thing to move down in priority because it's not absolutely needed, but we would like to kind of revamp that.
This isn't really a question for the executive producer, but I'm going to ask it anyway. The last named longbow was a Twisted Willow that came out a few years ago, 2019. And the last raid longbow, Ariania, the bolt bow, introduced in 2021. Can we get a new named bow, a new named longbow
Probably.
specifically? So,
I mean, that's probably a good. It's probably time, especially where we did the bow revamps. So
yeah,
that's a great suggestion.
yeah.
Um, we did just hire a new QA person, by the way, to respond to Crochet. Like we're literally ramping them up at this time. They just started, and that the QA person looks awesome. So, yeah, we can't wait to get them ramped up and get them looking at stuff.
Chief Visigoth wants to know about creating some kind of. Their suggestion is a cosmetic pack with the old Ravenloft extras, including the teleporter item. The Ravenloft teleporter is something that players can't currently acquire, and so because we're not selling Ravenloft directly as bundles or as tiers anymore in the DDO market. And they're
I
wondering if
mean,
we can bring that teleporter back in some way, perhaps a cosmetic pack with it included or something.
there's a lot of sort of old stuff that isn't available that we want to look at getting in, maybe on Daily Dice or as a revamped rewards or at least with a different color, and that's good. The best place to put that is in the forums because if you talk to me about them on stream, the chance of that information getting lost is very high. I mean, I try to take notes, but you're better off getting what old rewards would you like to see? If we had a thread like that, that would be actually very useful for the systems devs when we're looking for new stuff to put into things.
Arturium wants to know, will we be seeing more epic destinies to complement something like that new barbarian archetype?
We were just talking about there's some Epic Destiny balance stuff that probably needs to happen to make some of the Epic Destiny. There are a couple of Epic Destiny powers that were that are probably underpowered that we need to we'd like to boost. So on that, and we just did an Epic Destiny, so that just came out. Yeah, we'll probably do another one at some point, but like in our defense, but Epic Destiny we just released the new Epic Destiny, so that is very much in the cards. What happens when we revamp a raid is that you will get any bad loot will get revamped at its level so that it's competitive, and then when we introduce a new level for it, that you'll get upgraded versions of that loot, but rebalanced for the new level is usually what we do for revamped raids.
I don't know specifically what our loot plan is for the updated Chronoscope, so I can't really speak to that.
Right, that's what we usually do.
Yeah.
We still have the Reaper Tree revamp on the table, and we're looking at a good time to do that.
What do you see that being? Maybe.
When?
Like,
I'd like
what
to.
can, like, so we have some players. There's a long running thread on the DDO forums about 156 Reaper Point folks. And is there any thought about what we might do for those who have invested heavily, say, into the Reaper Point system, perhaps even beyond the functional limits of that system?
Yeah, like the new revamp would allow more things, you to get extra stuff beyond. Hopefully less power and more cosmetic, but definitely make progress in that. And I wanted to do it for this summer, but like one of the hard parts about our jobs is like, oh God, we're going to have to move this out for various reasons. So next year, that's a great thing that we're looking at for next year is a big system revamp.
At one point in the past, Ludacris uh, says, we spoke about wanting to revamp the Monk combo system. Any news on that?
I don't have any news on that. I know that it's a hot thing that Systems wants to do, but every time we scope it out, when we start deep digging into the Monk has so many unique systems that the amount of weeks and months that is required to do that, if they want to touch all their systems, really grows fast on Monk, right? Because it's like, well, if we did that, do we want to revamp how hand wraps work? And if we did the combo system, then we have to revamp how all the deliveries work. And then we have to probably revamp how the game treats unarmed attacks versus attacks. And then we probably want to look at the animations, and it's like, oh my God, like this is just. And so what ends up happening on the Monk is that it gets big. It gets big quick. That's something that has, and so it gets kind of bumped down on our kind of board of doom of all the things we want to do.
Mm-hmm. I saw your chat, Voodoo Spice, about a specific jack-o'-lantern orb cosmetic. I don't know what's happened to that either. We'll have to dig into that perhaps after the stream here at some point, see if we can't figure out,
Yeah,
what's up
did
with
it
that
get
item.
dropped or something?
I honestly don't know. I don't really recall that one myself, so I'm gonna have to do some digging, I think, to see what's the story behind it.
Yeah, Sacred Fist is cool. I agree. Somebody asked, where did I see it? Where SSG probably won't be added directly to Daybreak's All Access Pass anytime soon. We haven't discussed moving that because it would require a massive revamp of our account system. So I wouldn't expect that anytime soon. So.
What about two-factor authentication? That's something that has come up in previous chats that we've done.
I'm sorry.
Two-factor. What's the latest on two-factor authentication?
We just we hit a snag on launcher stuff, and until the launcher stuff's done, we can't do multi-factor authentication. So we're right in the middle of a new launcher, and we hit a snag on that, so that got delayed, and that's why the multi-factor authentication isn't in. But we have some awesome engineers, and we're looking at fixing that snag, so that will be.
But we do have people still working on that launcher. That is just a delayed project here. So.
Would you please consider doing a VIP XP weekend, maybe doing it for a week instead of just a couple days? I'll talk to the team about that, if we can do that. One of the reasons that we tend to do it shorter is one of the goals of having these festivals is not just to give you sweet bonuses, although that's part of it. But when we do it for a short amount of time, we're encouraging a whole bunch of people to log in at the same time so that the looking for group fills up. Meaning if we do it in 2 days, then a lot of people want to play in those 2 days. And during those 2 days, we're kind of focusing a lot of people into into a certain system. And if we put it out, then what happens is people dribble in and out, and you don't see those boosts to the social things of groups and such. That's one of the reasons I like the group XP buff, because it tends to help out the group finder as people try to fill their groups to get that extra XP.
Arturian wants to know about the possibility of new iconics in the future.
Yeah, new iconics is tough. We definitely want to do new races. So with the change in our system, rigging a new race has become more expensive for us. And so if you're wondering why we've slowed down on races, it's because of that. There's probably more behind the scenes than people need to know. But until we update our rigging system, it'll be a little slow. But we do want to do a new race again soon, and we do want to revamp human at some point. Human, maybe elf hobbit, but I don't know when that's going to come because of the changes. We also want to do some graphical updates on our engine. We're looking at things like shadows and shaders and ways to upgrade how good the engine looks. I think the half elves look a lot better than they used to after the revamp. I will say this on half elves in our defense. I like them, but more importantly, we've seen many more people playing half elves than before that. It went from like 0.5% to like 15% of classes are half elves. So, the revamp did something right. But I understand, like it's all subjective, and you may not like.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think I would want a squiddy race. I think Fred is enough.
I would. I think that'd be great. That sounds
Yeah,
fun.
I like the wood elf. I think one of the issues is that we see a lot of drow, and I think that it's just the stats are so good on drow that it's really hard. I mean, it's a really good class for so many of our meta builds.
I don't think you know the answer to Yamini's question about there's an entrance symbol in the fountain of Upper Moorgrave and the public area there. Any idea what's up with that?
Say that again. Sorry.
There is an entrance symbol. There is an entrance symbol in the fountain in Upper Moorgrave. And Vecna Unleashed here, and they're wondering, it's in the public area. There's like an entrance symbol that you can't do anything with. Any idea what the dealio is with that?
No, actually, I don't think that's one of our secrets. I think the players found the secrets for this. Mm-hmm. That might just be an artifact of the layout. I'm trying to think. Did we? I wonder if we. I think we cut one of our dungeons for time, and that might be something for that. That'd be something good to bring up with the team to at least remove.
See, I was going to say that was a special teacher entrance. So unless you are a staff member of Moorgrave University, you're not getting in. So
I love our game. I'm a fan of DDO and Lotro, but even I have to admit that the 3/5 male elf faces are not my favorite. I don't mean to trash talk my own game because I do love it, but yes.
A question about, so I'm just going to read it. It was mentioned that with the old Epic Destiny system, that a lot of people didn't go into epics. They tended to go from 1 to 20 and over again. Curious now that we're well into the new Epic Destiny system, do a lot more people go to cap these days from data on your end?
So we see a higher percentage of people in the Epic Destiny system. It's just the percentage of people that have engaged in that system has gone up. It's still not as much as the people going through heroics, but I think it feels much more familiar to them. It feels more like a tree, and so going into it feels like a nice extension of the new system. So
Chris the Mistword wants raid loot to be bound to account rather than bound to character. About a year ago when this was asked, you had said, we'll talk later. It's later. What are your thoughts on making all of raid gear bound to account?
It's unlikely we're going to go to a bound to account raid item. We want people to have to engage in the raids with different kinds of characters. And if we make it bound to account, basically what ends up happening is you can take your strongest meta character and just do the raid over and over again to get loot for other characters. And so it's hard. I know people are like bound to account raid loot, but like, I mean, wouldn't that mean that like your non-meta characters wouldn't engage in the raid? But once you learn the raid on one character, we're worried that you just play them over and over again. We definitely have players that engage in the game with a ton of alts. I mean, I don't think anybody has 14 alts that are all set up for Reaper 10, but a lot of people play alts rather than going through the reincarnation.
Okay.
The more request artifacts were bound to account, and they were changed to bound. So basically, raid stuff is currently bound to character because we want the raid people to grab loot on the raid character that is earning the loot, which is different for normal dungeons, which we don't mind as much if you use a bigger character to farm loot for alts. So it's not like we mind that bigger characters are farming loot for alts. It's that we want raid gear to be kind of like a status reward of that character beat the raid is kind of the vibe.
All right. I'm seeing a lot of feedback.
Okay. So there's some good arguments for bound to character and bound to account raid stuff that I think would make an excellent forum thread.
Yes, we have an excellent forum thread. We have had quite a few.
We could go through. I just don't want to sort of go through the discussion. I can see it for both, but because our raids are meant to be, our raid gear is not only gear but kind of status symbol. That's generally why we keep it bound to character. I understand the alternate that like having to play the healer over and over again and not getting your main character. I sympathize with that, having been in that situation. So that's a good point. I don't know that we're going to change it. I make no promises. I'll talk to the team about it, but that is not like, hey, I'll talk to the team about it and suggest we're going to do it. We'll revisit, but I don't know how it's going to change. New updates about fixing server lag. We've made some. I wish I had the chart. So our phase 2 of server lag fixes are done. Our engineering just put in new fixes with the last update, in fact. And when we look at it, our hitch counts are much lower than they used to be. So it's pretty impressive when you look at the charts, but that doesn't mean that lag is gone, and that doesn't mean that lag has completely gone away. You can still get lag in a number of ways. I don't know that saying day one is very nice. The other thing about DDO that you might run into is if there's some weird thing that has a whole bunch of people coming back on old characters, you can get a day or two of lag as the old characters are updated to the new system. But at this point, I don't think that would cause that much lag. The other issue I have with lag is there's different kinds of lag, but technically they're very different. It becomes hard for us to talk about lag when a player talks about generic lag. Are you seeing like you're actively in combat and you're doing hitches? Are you seeing your load times are very long? Are you seeing you're getting disconnected? Um, uh, are you seeing that people take a long time to come in? So that's the other issue that sometimes is frustrating, because sometimes people use lag in a way that is very different. So when we get lag, we're like, oh, the game is slowed down. The other frustrating thing about lag is client versus server lag. Like, we're concentrating on server lag, and if when you're talking about lag, you're saying my frame rate dropped to 12 frames per second. That's very different, and is a would indicate a client problem that we wouldn't see through our normal server focused data. Does that make sense? So it'd be kind of very interesting to look into that. On the server side, the server is much healthier than it was a year and a half, or even 6 months, or even a month ago as we look at it. But that doesn't mean that we aren't seeing lag and hitching. It's just that it's greatly reduced. So when that happens, the more information people can give us about exactly what they're seeing, um, the better it is. Why is there so much loading server lag? Because your characters have gotten freaking huge. Like, literally, it's a serialization issue. Your characters are very big. They have 15 years of quest data and a lot of data. That's one of the reasons that we want to revamp Reaper. Is I actually want to get the Reaper tree information off the characters and make that more like an ongoing system where you earn ranks in Reaper rather than picking trees, because that's more serialization data on it. So if you're talking about loading screen lag, you meaning long loading screens, it's a character serialization. And to be fair, shrinking characters is not as much a thing that we've been looking at, because I would rather have someone have a long loading screen but have a smooth experience while fighting than vice versa. It's funny. More inventory bank storage is something that we can look at. The good news is that all of the inventory bank storage is now stored off the character. Before, we were shy about putting it out because of that. So why is there so much loading screen lag when it's more inventory bank storage side by side? That's exactly. So the good news is we did move the inventory stuff into a side storage that doesn't get moved with your character. So that's good. But before, we just jumped in tons of inventory and bank storage. We basically are looking at like how it's working on the server. So for inventory, you'll never get more actual bag space in your backpack. And that's because the serialization size is getting too big and we don't want to increase the loading screen. As for character and account bank storage, we definitely want to put them. That won't affect how your character serializes. That's only accessed when you actually click on the bank.
Related to the login load times, someone is asking, is that the same basic issue with why it takes a while for the client to close for some people? Like when you actually close the game client, it takes a little while for it to close. Is that the same basic idea?
Shouldn't be like the serialization, because you're not moving from place to place. So if your client is taking a long time to load, that might be something different. Your client should not be waiting for your character to serialize.
I don't know if this person was planted by you there, Sev, but someone is saying, can we sort of do Planescape stuff?
Yeah, I mean, I love Planescape. Right now, we're looking to see for the next thing what we're going to do. Mitch Raynor actually won just a hair over Planescape, but I know that WotC is doing Planescape stuff right now, so I would kind of like to go in that direction. And so we have to make that decision like ASAP, because people are beginning to work on that content.
All right.
The pre-build paths need to be revamped, yes. So paths are a complicated situation that I want to get into, because we'd like to revamp kind of how racial stats work so that you don't need 450 paths for everything, but that is a long way away and not something that we are planning on doing anytime soon. And so that's why I don't want to get into paths, because paths tie into the reason paths are hard is because you need a separate path built for every race class combo because of the way the races have stats. And so there's a whole back history of that we'd like to address someday. And that's why the paths don't really get revamped, because until we get into that, we can't really figure out, we can't make decisions from the path until we make pre-decisions. I love Gith. I love the Gith Yankee. I love the Gith Zeri. I would love to do Giths. I would love to have Gith enemies. I would even love to have a Gith Zeri, Gith Yankee race, of kind of like outcasts that aren't quite as evil. So that would be cool. I'd love to do Sigil too. Yes. Planescape. But when we did our survey, like I said, Myth beat out Planescape by just a hair. So the Myth is pretty cool too. It's more Forgotten Realms stuff. It's an ancient elven city that has a lot of magic and history in it. That's super cool. I'd love to do that. It's kind of northeast of Cormier, so it's right in our wheelhouse. So that is something that we're also. Psionics, the problem with Psionics, honestly, is that after doing The Alchemist, and I've talked about this before, so I apologize for kind of repeating myself, but The Alchemist took a lot of work because it was all new spells. Like we underscoped how long that would take. Because we do spell work, but when you create that amount of new spells, the sheer amount is big. So if we came up with a psionic solution that actually did all new spells, that would be massive amounts of work. If we did it, if we decided to go a whole new psionic version of spells. But I definitely would like to do psionics at some point. I think anybody who's watched my streams know I love psionics. So, I think that would be great.
Someone has a suggestion to have a monster manual made up of Reapers.
That would be an idea. The Reaper stuff, though, is like a lot of the players don't engage in the Reaper system. So we want to be careful that wouldn't be too specialized.
Arthuvian says, are there some plans to improve the cosmetic system, like customizing the individual armor slots separately, forearms, hips, chest, legs, etc.? Perhaps something a little bit more like what we have over on the Lord of the Rings Online, where you've got like a cosmetic tab with slots and things.
Yeah, I asked about that with our art team, and the problem is the amount of gear in game right now is so big. So basically, you'd have to go and cut up the current gear or have an override system. And when we looked at it, it went from it's a nice to have feature, and it got very expensive very quick, which is why we haven't done it. The problem is the bigger, like revamping a system like that, the bigger the game is, the more work that the artists have of revamping all of the old items to fit into the new system. So you have to get like really smart of having some way. For instance, all of the items get put together when you put on a new armor set. That's all kind of one API. So you would have to put in a system if you don't want to cut up every armor piece in the game. And we have a lot of armor pieces, so we kind of don't want to do that. You have to have something that can override things that sit on top of your base armor, like boots and gloves, and replace those with something else. And our code is not capable of doing that. So that's much more than so that has both an artistic and a heavy engineering cost. That's why we haven't done it. We are working on options to have UI upscaling on DDO and Lotro. We're working on Lotro right now. We do want to upscale the icons, but the other problem is having an option to have our UI be bigger.
All right.
Merch is a problem because we would have to get an agreement from the licensor to do merch. So here's the problem with merchandise is that Dungeon Dragons have a lot of awesome, really cool kind of people that are making Dungeon Dragon stuff. And so when you're talking about physical merchandise, we don't want to have, we don't want people that create physical Dungeons and Dragons materials to feel as though we are competing. And so every time that we want to do merchandise, there is a chance that we are competing with someone else's license. And so we tend to shy away from, so that complicates the whole physical merchandise stuff.
Savian Demarian
I
asks
don't,
whether we have any thoughts about a Linux installer for DDO.
I don't have the engineering to support a Linux installer and feel good about actually leading players to it. I would have to have Linux engineers that went and upkept it and made sure that it was run up and in order to announce it. And I don't have plans for that because of the engineering involved. Someone asked about follow command. Follow command, as soon as you have a follow command, you have multi-boxing, you have easier multi-boxing and easier botting. And so probably not. I think that players will just have to be content with actually playing the game.
I wanted to go back to a little bit of the lag discussion earlier. Someone had made a
I
comment.
want to say something. When
Yeah,
we talk
go
about
for it.
upscaling icon, there's a difference between a mathematical scaling algorithm and AI. We're not planning on using AI to do things. A mathematical upscaling algorithm in Photoshop or whatever is very different than using AI. A AI trained is than using something trained by art that is out there via AI to upscale. We don't plan on using any AI for our games. I want to make sure that we have our language because someone added using AI to upscale icons, and AI trained by general art is not something that we're planning on.
Okay. I wanted to go back to a little bit of the lag discussion. Someone had made a comment about, is the cause of the major lag experiences unknown? Do we know why it's happening in many cases?
I mean, it depends. With the problem with lag is that it seems a lot better for people. I know that when we first made changes to, I'm worried because when we first made changes, the raids got a lot better, and the fact that they should not have backtracked. So I'm wondering if behind the scenes we have things that can turn on and off these changes. And so if you saw that first day of the lag fixes and the hunt was much better, I don't know if you've watched any of the stream. If that's backtracked, I want to look into it. I'm wondering if maybe something happened where some of our back end code is not activating. So
I was thinking,
that
related to the comment that had been made about character data size on loading screens and things like that as well, that in some cases, we do know in a broad sense, what some of the problem areas are. And as you were saying, we've got hitch reports and that we're looking at to,
sure.
be able to measure improvement on those things over time.
So if you're talking about load screen, that's a serialization problem. We know that, we can see that, but the problem is that your characters have a lot of data, and so if we want to remove some of that data, we remove some of the functionality. And I don't think anybody wants to have functionality removed of their cool characters. Like you can only keep a certain amount of quests available, or you know what I mean? Like your characters have a lot of data. We don't have a quest system like everything else. We basically keep constant information on all of your quests, and you have big inventories and have a lot of stuff. So, yeah. So we want to kind of look at that. I want to look at that day one lag for the raids because we should not have backtracked. And we're kind of not seeing that bad on the side. So that we definitely have to look into that. The other thing that we're really excited about is our server technology is old and that is still 32-bit, which limits the amount of memory we can use. 64-bit servers have been we're playing around with that on the Lotro side, and we plan on playing around with that on the DDoS. Once we have that and we can preload all of our instances, there's a whole bunch of stuff that can happen. So bear with me as we get that looking.
All right. We have about 10 minutes or so here left on the chat, so if you haven't had an opportunity to ask your question yet, now might be a good time to do so.
I'll try to get some of the lag charts in to look. One of the problems is that 12 people it's tough. So let me ask, because one of the things that we did find out was that kind of interesting. One of the sources of lag was that there was problems with projectile spells from projectiles. And I know that we had fixes in the work for that, and I need to see where that is as well. Longer raids, maybe we have to be careful that it doesn't become. We like to keep our kind of experiences in the less than 30 minutes so that players feel they can participate in them. For some of our players, doing something that takes 45 minutes to an hour is hard because they can't just log in and get some stuff done and leave. So we do want to be careful on that in terms of the length of things.
Someone has a suggestion to place a fire your rune arm on the action bar instead of having it keybound. That seems like kind of a neat idea. Just go psh, psh, psh to fire.
I think that there's something about how rune arms work that it's not a normal skill, which complicates that, but I don't have the information. That would be a Steel Star question. I don't have information on Monster Manual. I don't know why you wouldn't be able to see hit point view on that. That's something new to me. I apologize. I'm sure the team knows about it. Once we get to revamping raids, we tend to remove flagging. I kind of agree with that. It's just a matter of time because removing the flagging sometimes is very complex and sometimes it's easy depending on how the thing was programmed.
I see your question, Chris, about your suggestion to add things to the Fire over Morgrave raid chests. I will have to pass that suggestion over to the team. I would need to look into your question more.
People are getting into a lot of interesting kind of very specific stuff. I'm sure I missed some questions. I apologize. I saw some going off. I'm really So VI program. Sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead if you want. Yeah.
VIP program update. I know for various reasons that it got derailed. One of the reasons we turned on daily dice for the month. So you have another 10 days of gold rolls for your VIPs. So I'm enjoying that because I log on to various characters and claim those. So that is something that we're doing for our VIPs in the meantime. So yes, we need to do that. And what happened? So it got derailed again because there is some count level stuff that was revealed with the new store that was preventing new accounts from being able to log on that took my engineering resources, and that's bad because if a new player can make an account and then have trouble logging onto it, that's really terrible. It's a really terrible experience. And so my engineers moved off of like literally implementing the VIP stuff to doing that. If you're wondering what is going. Yeah. So if anyone has an idea how to make those daily dice rolls roll higher, please tell me because I would like to use that technique too. I keep telling the devs to program it so that if it's my account, I get higher rolls, and they just refuse. And
Yeah, I'm not sure that I've got a lot of good questions that we can really answer here. So a couple of suggestions we could verbally pass along, but we're not really
let me
able
show
to
you.
comment on our content plans for 2024 at this point. So
I mean, we did talk about like potentials for the next X pack, so I think that's big. That's pretty big. Is
yeah,
that
that's
we're,
true.
we're we're looking probably between a Planescape or a Midranor. I'm really excited about that, and I probably shouldn't have said anything because even now our marketing team is going to punch me in that. But
Oh, we're just looking into options. So
yeah, I haven't run the raid for a few months, so I probably have to do that and look at it. Let me talk to, but better than having me run it is having me go and see if our engineers can pull updated raid data. That'll be if you're looking for raid stuff, that's a much better use of my time than playing with you. It's not like I don't believe you. I just need to pull data so we can see why we had such good results at first and then it backtracked.
can we remove flagging on old raids like Abbott and Heroic Shroud? It can be
Yeah,
difficult to get groups at level as a result of the flagging
yeah, we can.
requirements.
When we revamp those raids, we tend to remove flagging, but the problem is that all the flagging tends to be programmed specific to the raid rather than using a flagging system. And so it's basically scripted. And so removing it sometimes is actually quite complex. You wouldn't think so, and each raid could be flagged differently. For the Niv Mine versus Voodoo Spice, it depends on during our player meetup which one talked to me last because I have a short memory. So the favorite between the two is just who spoke with me at the player meetup last. Really, that's what it comes down to. I'll look into the making sentient jewels available more often.
All right.
I mean, anytime we put in new named items, sentient XP is essentially dropping. Yeah, I would love to get new sentient jewels. I like the voices and stuff, so that would be cool.
Someone wants to get rid of the death penalty in raids when the raid is over. I would imagine there's some that's also under the more complicated than you'd think category, but you know.
Do we want to get rid of death penalties for raids though?
No, only when the raid is over, right? So you're still on your Reaper or whatever death weight, and the rest of the group completed the raid. You got to wait until you can res yourself or be resed. So
The spell power imbue nerf because imbue had overwhelmed the meta. Some of the imbue builds were really good. If people in the way that people were stacking. See, it's hard for me to answer because it depends on your build, right? Like I don't want to say that your specific imbue build was overpowered because if you build normally, But if you stacked imbue builds, like that could be a significant amount of your DP. No, we'll be doing more filigree, and we continue
Yeah,
to do
I
the
saw that
filigree.
question, but I wasn't sure. I figure we need to dig into it a little bit. There are quite a few filigree in the legendary level range, so
It depends what the vibe of what players seem to want is, but yeah, like we'll have more filigree. That'd be nice. Also, I kind of like the festival filigree set that we released. Um, it's just sometimes it's hard to think of new sets that fill a role in the meta.
but I think part of the question is about Isle of Dread and such. Didn't use filigree necessarily, although yeah, I don't know. I have to look into some of the question there. All right. Well, hey, I think we're going to wrap this up, Sev. Thanks so much for joining me here today. Really
It is
appreciate you
that
being
time.
here. Yep, it is that time. We got things to do here. So, we'll have more information about Update 62 next week, and we'll have you on it here again in the future, Sev. Not sure when, but some point, because we do have things to talk about for next year and that as well. So. All right, thanks very much for joining me, and thanks everyone for watching. I am going to say goodbye to Sev here real quick, and see what I should. There we go. There we go. All right, thanks so much, Sev, and thanks for being here, everyone. Did want to quick go over the news though, although I forgot to put it up on my screen. We do have a bonus days of Double Mysterious Remnants. That is through Sunday. And there is one sales item I wanted to bring up to you as well, because I know that our time is, that it's only available for a limited time. The +2 Racial Action Point tomes are back in the DDO store. That is through October 5th, so through next Thursday. You can get the +2 Racial AP tomes. I know that there had been quite a few requests on the forums and such for their return. So, they are available right now in the DDO store. Let me take one last look at chat. And yeah, thanks everyone for being here. This show gets archived on YouTube. Hope you have a great weekend, everyone. Talk to you soon.